Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second West Coast Rally. Wan Shang Hao. Salamat Sejahtera. West Coast Teguti, Singapura Galuku Yen Malay Wanakam. Namaste. I'm being passed a blank sheet of paper here. Actually, this happened at the 1997 election in Chengshan, where my late father was passed a sheet of paper that got him into a lot of trouble. I don't know whether any of you remember this, but this is the Prime Minister's condolence letter that inspired me to go into politics. Because in his letter, he said that he was sorry that my father had passed away, but he had tried to destroy the whole PAP system of government, and therefore he had to be destroyed. So, JBJ was a patriot. He loved Singapore. Let's not confuse Singapore with the PAP, though that's very easy to do. In 1981, JBJ was the first person to break the PAP's monopoly on Parliament when he won in Anson, which is only a few miles away from here. He was in Parliament from 81 to 86, but in 86 he was thrown out after he was convicted. A conviction that the UK Privy Council said should have been overturned, but the PAP refused to do so. Apart from a period from 97 to 91, when he was an NCMP, after he came very close to winning the Chengshan GRC, very close, despite some controversial tactics by the PAP. He was an NCMP till 2001, before he was made bankrupt as a result of defamation suits. And unfortunately, he only managed to free himself from bankruptcy in 2007, and he died before he was able to get back into Parliament. But along the way, before, one of his last acts was to found the Reform Party. As a result of these tactics, the people have had really no voice in Parliament. And the use of the GRC system has basically denied a big segment of you a voice in Parliament. The GRC system means that despite this and the fear, the very real climate of fear has meant that more than half the seats at the last election when uncontested. And that in the seats that were contested, there were only 2 opposition MPs elected, despite winning 34% of the vote. So what has this meant for Singaporeans? The fact that they have so little representation in Parliament. It's meant that the PAP can treat you basically with contempt and implement policies that are not in your interests. What other country, what other democracy and first world nation would tolerate a government that basically let in foreigners and doubled the population in the last 20 years to compete with Singaporeans? What other government would be tolerated when its leader said that Singaporeans needed a spur in their sides to stop them being lazy and complacent? What other country would have a system where you are basically 99 years serfs of the PAP, of the HDB, where you only have a 99-year leasehold? The Reform Party wants to change that and give you the right to buy out your freehold. Why should you be told where to live? Why should minorities, why should there be an Ethnic Integration Act which denies minorities the people the right to live where they choose? Why should you be beholden to the government for the right to to get the value of your property back through the SIRS scheme? At the moment, if the 99-year lease is up, your property would be worth nothing. So you're dependent on the government to extend your lease. So in other words, they're saying to you, you have to be good boys and girls, you have to vote us in. Right. What other country would rack up $300 billion in surpluses over the last 10 years and yet say that we can't afford basic spending on education and health? And when I talk about $300 billion in surpluses, I'm not talking just about, I'm not even including the surpluses and the overseas assets held by Temasek and GIC, which incidentally the Reform Party wants to give you a stake in. We want to distribute shares in Temasek to Singaporeans. What other country at our level of income and wealth would not have universal free and compulsory education up to secondary level? What other country would not have a system of health insurance which ensures that you don't run out of money to pay for essential drugs when you're seriously ill? So, residents of West Coast, how do you feel about being denied a voice for the last 14 years, being denied the chance to vote? Recently I read that Minister Iswaran said the PAP were proud of their track record in West Coast. But how do we know, how do you know, how can they say that their track record is good when you have not had an opportunity to judge it? So we stand here, we're asking for you to send us to Parliament. This is the first step in a long road. Vote for us if you want change. Lee said that competition is good for Singaporeans because basically they might become complacent. They need a spur stuck in their sides. But why do the PAP think that competition in politics is not good? Why does competition in politics brings about better, more intelligent policies, just as competition in business leads to innovation, productivity, and creativity? Without competition in Parliament, you are going to be taken for granted and get the sort of policies that are not in your interests. Your rights as citizens will be diluted. So that's the theme of the Reform Party. Going back to, I mentioned last time, the former slogan that JBJ used, which was power to the people. And the Reform Party is about returning power to you. So when you cast your vote on May the 7th, think carefully. Do you want the current situation to go on? Do you want do you want representatives who put your welfare and interests at the heart of policy? The PAP has talked for a long time about their track record and the great people they have in their team. The Prime Minister said that there's no one in Singapore that's the equal of their team. Well, we at the Reform Party think they're wrong. At the Reform Party, we have an economist who's the equal of anyone in the PAP. So I'm going to hand over now to the next speaker, but I want you to remember, this is your chance to vote on May the 7th. You haven't had a chance to vote for 14 years. So use it wisely. If you don't get if you don't get the Reform Party into Parliament, then you have only yourselves to blame if you get the policies that you don't want. So, vote for the Reform Party.